Awesome. Okay. So, Jennifer, tell me about your role and your involvement in the cannabis, hemp, CBD industry. What do you do, and what's a day like for you?
Okay, well, I started in this industry about 10 years ago, and it was due to health reasons. All of a sudden, my husband was hit with a bunch of, sort of midlife kind of issues. And I was like, and I was looking at all the medications that were being prescribed, and I was just unhappy with the overwhelming downside of all the side effects. So first I was like, okay, we need a better diet. And then, after that started working, I was like, I really think we should try medical marijuana because at that time, CBD was really just in its infancy and not being explored as much. So we started using medical marijuana, and that worked. We had really great results, and then I realized that there's a real connection between, mind, body health, food, and, our environment. And I realized we're just being served up and fed a lot of bad nutrition. So I started out sort of as a consultant on like how to have a healthier pantry, and along the way, people would ask me like, well, my son has ADHD, and what do you think about this? And so I was sort of helping moms predominantly take care of their young kids that they didn't want medicated with big pharma meds. And I just sort of fell into it. And now the way I work is I do in-home parties, and I bring a bunch of different products, topicals and edibles, and dog treats, vape pens, whatever people seem to be interested in, and I do a little demonstration on how the products work. I have many clients at this point that have dealt with really serious health issues from, the very common ADHD. I like to say if a kid has a pulse, they have ADHD,
Mhm.
which is kind of sad, but it seems I feel a lot of children are being fed medications that they don't need, and there's
Mhm.
healthier ways. And I also have clients who have Lyme disease who were just suffering unnecessarily, and looking for a better outcome. Lyme disease, first off, is incredibly hard to diagnose correctly, and these people often go through many diagnoses before coming to the end of being told, oh, it's Lyme disease. And Lyme disease is very tricky. If it's treated on one front, it can go away and then come back as something else. So, another big area is food allergies. I've had people who come to me and they're just like, I can't eat anything. And, after doing an elimination diet, I suggest putting CBD into their diet and hemp hearts so they can start curing their system and eating healthier. And, I'm all about how can we make living life better. And I see CBD and cannabis as a really smart way to either work with medications that doctors have prescribed, or if you're just at the end of the like, I can't take these medications anymore, I want to look at a holistic approach, and then I help people do those things. And I have to say, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse. I always urge my clients to go and, have the talk with their care provider, that they're not just, jumping all in, and not being prudent about, how they're caring for themselves. It's always good to work with your doctor, whether they're pro cannabis or not. You should still approach it with them. So that's sort of, I guess, in a nutshell, what I do. It's sort of morphed. It's a constantly evolving. I also, we've been off air for a few weeks now, but I also co-host Hemp Radio, and we interview different people from the industry. We review products, and we're just sort of not only, the consumables. We also like the ancillary products, like what are people doing with hemp fabric and hemp plastics and hempcrete and all that. We see it as sort of the wonder cure all for the planet.
And that's great. And so when you do your in-home parties, how do you determine what products to bring to those parties? Is it based on the needs of the people that are coming, or do you have, manufacturers and producers of product that will send you stuff, or you're sourcing these things directly?
It depends. It can be sort of just like an overview where I bring a little, like some topicals, some edibles, or and consumables, smokables, and oils. I usually tailor it to the host or hostess's, desire. They have a group of friends that they're gonna invite to this event, and I say, how would you like to do it? And more often than not, I usually bring about 6 to 8 different products, and just give a general overview. I pass out samples. I let people try them. We usually make some sort of, sparkling beverage that we infuse with CBD oil. Generally, when I do the parties, I don't do product with THC. Um, and that's just because that's my preference, but I can do that if somebody is requesting it. But I find a lot of people now are just, they're really approaching it from a lifestyle choice, and they want to be living healthier, so they're looking at ways to make that happen. I have a line of it's a Himalayan sea salt, or not sea salt. I always throw that in there, but it's not sea salt. Himalayan pink salt, and that's infused with CBD and coconut oil, and it's used as a bath soak that is really popular. And if you want to bring that spa feeling to your bathtub at home, it's really great for that. And people really like the drinks, the cocktails with a little bit of CBD oil in it. And you can tell, the first, half hour, maybe people are a little nervous at a party if they haven't ever tried any of these products. But then, all of a sudden they're like, wow, I feel really great. It's so wonderful to see. And I've had people like try one of my topicals. I do a lot of body butters, and they will be like, I had this one woman who came to a party. She's a nurse. She worked the overnight shift and came to, like, directly to this brunch from work. And she's like, can I go in the bathroom and put this on my lower back? It's just killing me. I was like, sure. Half an hour later, she's saying, this stuff is phenomenal. I never would have believed it if I hadn't tried it. So having those kind of anecdotal results that you see on the spot is really kind of phenomenal to me, that you can see the results so quickly. Um, and in terms of managing serious health issues, it's of course a longer road. I have one client who's been working with me for over a year, and she's had serious complications from Lyme disease, several surgeries, but her health has I would say not 100% back, but she's well on the road to reclaiming her life and being able to live life on her terms, not on a schedule of doctor's appointments and, different therapies that were, although you see some positive, oftentimes there's a period of being debilitated, like, oh wow, I feel great, I've had this infusion, and I'm great for 3 days, but then I'm debilitated for the next 10. So getting people off that roller coaster of the downside of trying to get healthy is kind it's just what I strive to do every day. And at first I thought you were in New York. I was missing I thought your area code was in upstate New York. And I don't know how this works now since you're in Canada and I'm here in California. I don't know with the legalization. This is something I'll have to look into. Like, how do I provide service in Canada? That would be
Yeah,
phenomenal to be able
and
to do too.
absolutely. Canada is fully opened, we're fully regulated, and so we are having a global reach. So it's nice to know that you are in California, actually, because I have spoken to a couple of people here in Canada that are doing similar things to yourself,
Uh-huh.
and but they're doing it on a more retail spa level. So they do have,
Right.
brick and mortar, and but all of their services are surrounding the like a spa retreat. So you go in and instead of having a facial with just the regular um, antioxidants and that type of thing that you would find in spas, all of the products are infused somewhat with the CBD extracts, and
And
so they're
I,
having tremendous success with
I
them.
I would think so because when I came up with my first product, it was the bath soak, and I sort of hit upon this because of talking to somebody at a spa, and they said to me, well, the skin is your largest organ. It's the best way to deliver something into your system quickly.
Mhm.
So I started thinking about it, and I years ago when I had a knee injury and I was putting a THC topical on it, and I also started rubbing it on, that crease you get in between your brows as you get older. I started,
Mhm.
like putting that same salve that I was using for pain killing on my knee. I started putting it um, on that little furrow on my brow, and it is remarkable how well it works topically to release those little fine age lines and like smile lines that you get, that, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize I had such a deep furrow in my brow. And then, after a couple weeks of rubbing that on there, you're like, wow, it really did lighten it. So I think there's so many applications that it works for, and the reason it works on those kind of muscle lines that you get in your face is because it relaxes the muscles
Mhm.
and you're not twitching them like that, so it's kind of, to me, it's amazing the amount of good that comes out of this one plant to me,
Mhm.
when you talk about, kids that, I personally have no clients that are, parents of children with seizures. But when you see the turnaround in the behavior of these children and the fact that they're able to, live life is just,
It's
that to me,
remarkable.
that's the reason, like it for me, it's never been like, oh, I want to, smoke a joint and get high. um, which I will do from time to time. But most of the time, I'm like, I just want to feel good. I want my family to have a healthy respect for going to the doctor, but also like realizing that holistic medicine has a place, and it's, about time that it started making this huge surge into the mainstream instead of, in back alleys where people are like, oh, I need Rick Simpson oil because my uncle has cancer and I want to cure him. And then you have to, for years, people were making it illegally and at great risk. And now we know the results. Now we can hopefully have some good studies done and have that documented in medical journals. I think all of this, the timing is perfect. And I personally don't see a downside. I know lots of people, you know, still do, and thank you, Canada, for not seeing the problem anymore. I wish we could get it approved on a federal level in the states as well. I
Yeah.
we all gave you a big cheer.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, tell me something because I've had this question posed to me recently, and it's kind of odd. When you mentioned just now that occasionally, if you use the products primarily for their for the benefits that you can get from it, but if you chose to get high, that's something that you will do, and as a consenting adult, that's your privilege to do that. For someone like myself, I've never smoked a joint. I have no idea what the feeling of being high would be. But I'm not, and I haven't used the products in a way for anything medical. But
Uh-huh.
I have no aversion to that. If I was diagnosed with something, some kind of an ailment, and there was relief by using the product, I would have, I wouldn't blink about
Right.
using it. So explain to someone like myself, and probably to many of our readers who could be in the same position that I'm in. I'm not a smoker. I've never smoked a joint. I don't know what that feeling of being high is. I've seen lots of my friends when I was in college do it, and they just seem to get stupid, is what I
Right. Well,
but back then we were 20 some year olds, right? It's
exactly,
different
exactly.
now. So for the benefit of the readers and for myself, go a little deeper into that.
Okay. So usually for me, if I, decide um, to smoke marijuana, and I do prefer to smoke a joint as opposed to any kind of oil or vape sort of thing. Um, it's usually kind of like, oh, it's just a group of people, and we're having brunch, or having some beers and barbecue, and somebody says, hey, let's smoke a joint, and and I will smoke a little bit, but I don't, in general, I don't like the what they call couch lock feeling, where you're just sort of like, okay, I'm I can't move and my brain is like really active. I personally, I don't really like that. So I think one of the things that's really important when you're trying marijuana that has a high THC content is to pick how you want to feel. There are different strains that make you feel more up, and those are, and I hesitate to use the standard indica and sativa um, categories, because there, it's just like anything. Someone might not have the same effect that I feel from that. And so you have to sort of look at the general, like I want something that's going to help me feel more focused, and then you would choose to smoke something like a green crack, and or I've had a really rough week and I just want to, you know I want that couch lock. I want to, be the quintessential couch potato and fall asleep, and have really weird dreams. So then you would choose something for that. And I mean, it's sort of trial and error at a certain point, like figuring out what you like. You smoke something and you're like, wow, I really didn't like that. Or I smoked way too much of that. And I always, I'm like, oh, I'm going to be really cautious with this when we're doing a hemp radio show. It's sort of a thing. We'll occasionally smoke with our guests afterwards, and I'm always like, no, I got to drive today. I don't want to be, feeling the need to go 35 in the slow lane with people whizzing by me and honking. So, you know,
So is it
so
more of a social thing? Is that why
it's
people will do the joint or the oil or whatever it is that has the THC in it? Is it
I
more of a
think so.
social
Like
thing?
for me, I see it as a social thing. I rarely, like, yeah, I'm not, getting up and smoking after the kids leave for school. Um, they, I like, personally, I'm a fan of edibles. I like to have, if I'm going to have an edible, I like it in chocolate, and I like a nice dark chocolate with not a high THC content, but I like that with a glass of red wine. And, I think that's a
And is
nice,
there a distinct flavor to it? Do you taste like if I were to eat a piece of chocolate, and I've never met a chocolate that I didn't like. So,
me
um,
too.
you know, I see a box and I will devour it, and I will have it for dinner or breakfast or lunch or whatever. I can replace a meal with chocolate, but in the sense of having chocolate, which is infused with um, cannabis or some form of the product, is there, like, if I were to eat a piece of dark chocolate, am I going to get a noticeable difference in taste, or is it just
It
something that it will taste the same, but it will hit me later?
it and that depends on what it's being infused with. I would say cannabis in general has a slightly astringent flavor. Like if you take like a high potency CBD oil, it like my kids will be like, why don't I just go chew on a pine tree, mom? Like, because pine tree isn't near as healthy, son. But um, so it sort of has a little bit of a, I would say, balsamy, astringent flavor to it.
Okay.
But because of the way it's bred now to have specific flavors, there can be ones that taste more minty or more lemony, and you will taste it in a chocolate, but it's almost, I compare it to the chocolates that are sometimes infused with some sort of alcohol, not the ones with the like liquid alcohol center, but something that's got a little bit of a sharper flavor to it. It, but I have to say, it's not unpleasant. It's not an unpleasant taste. I mean, I think that's evident in how much THC or CBD chocolate is available on the market. The other thing that's really popular is the gummies, and to me, you can't taste the product in those at all. They're very
Is that
artfully
because they're
masked.
sweetened, maybe?
Yes, I believe that's why I think, um, And once you put that sort of, if they're like the sour gummies, the that whatever ascorbic acid or citric acid, whatever they're using to create that super sour,
Hmm.
just masks the taste of the cannabis. I've had people say they don't like the taste in edibles. Like they don't like it in chocolate, but they like it in the butter. They don't like it in the dessert items, but they like beer or wine that are infused with it. Personally, I think for me, it's not a good mix. I don't really, other than like the glass of wine with the chocolate, I don't like to mix cannabis with alcohol. I think it's sort of just, it puts me in some kind of oversensory, my senses just get overloaded, and I prefer a CBD. I make a lot of like sort of sparkling water drinks, like with lime and blueberry, a little bit of CBD and seltzer water kind of drinks. Those are sort of the way I tend to serve it to friends if they want to try it. Sort of like agua fresca or something like that is a nice way to deliver it as well. Yeah, there's a
Okay.
lot, and I just encourage people to try carefully. Like don't go to the dispensary and get a whole bunch of different things and try them all at once. Definitely, like if you're going to try smoking, take a couple hits and see how that feels before you decide to smoke an entire joint. Um, or, eat, a corner of a chocolate bar or a brownie before you eat the whole thing. Because, depending on the potency, I have a friend who makes her business, she started in compassionate care probably 20 years ago, and she started just making brownies and butter. And um, her brownies, I can eat like an eighth of one, you know? And I mean, they're not terribly huge either. So, if you think of something that's like maybe, I don't know, 15 centimeters by 15 centimeters, and, divide that into 8 pieces, that's like a dose, So for me, and I have a friend that I met through her, and he's like, "Oh no, I eat the whole thing." I'm just
Oh,
like,
wow.
"Wow, you must like fall down,"
Hmm.
So, and she deals mostly with cancer and end stage cancer patients who are looking for a stronger dose to manage pain at the end of life. And and has she's very open with this. She'll say, "I've never cured anybody, but I know I have helped people who are in a lot of pain, you know feel much better after dealing with this horrible disease." Some
Hmm.
cancers are just horrific. And she's similar to me in her goal is to deliver you know a more peaceful, healthful solution than what the opioids. Of course, we have a huge crisis with that. And
Hmm.
um, you know when you can have a non-addictive substance that can treat it better, um, it just kind of makes you think, like, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's next for Jennifer?
Well, a couple things. Actually, my online shop is closed down right now because of all the compliance rules. My packaging needs to change, and I decided that I'm going to change some of my products based on feedback from clients. Always looking to improve things and have a better product. So my bath soaks are changing. They're going to have like less. They were very like heavy with the like body oil, and that was really I like that feeling. A lot of people were like, no, it's too heavy. So I've changed my oil, and we'll have less in the packaging. So it'll look more like a traditional salt soak that you would add to your bath at home, but it will still have the CBD and the aroma, and some coconut. I use MCT oil, the medium chain triglycerides. They're just phenomenal for your skin, and they don't leave as heavy of a oil oil slick on your bathtub. you know.
Okay.
I'm also adding in some hemp-based home products. So I'll be selling some ancillary products that will go along with the CBD products. So I'm going to have a line of jar candles with hemp wicks that really help for purifying the air in your home. These little sandwich wraps that I make, instead of using plastic baggies, they're a hemp cloth that's coated with beeswax, so you can have a reusable sandwich wrap. And just trying to approach the hemp industry on a as holistically as I can, and offer as much of these products to the consumer as possible, and seeing that they're trying to get away from plastic, the recycling and everything that ends up in the landfill that we think is getting recycled, but it's not. And
Mhm.
so helping. I've also consulted on a couple projects with people who are looking for hemp-based plastic packaging, which would be biodegradable, which would put us, leaps and bounds ahead of the plastic trash pile that were the crisis that's coming from that.
Mhm.
So just really trying to be active in the industry. I am looking to hopefully put together some kind of event with a friend of mine who works with an event space in DC. So maybe more towards the end of the year, a health and wellness event, geared towards hemp and the entire industry.
Okay. Well, that all sounds wonderful. Yeah. And we wish you good luck with all of that.
Well, Delight, thank you so much for having me on.